attention, though, now turning to that Panthers game. We are expecting to see some stepped-up security at that game. Behind me, you can see a little bit of that in the form of police officers that are here. Take a look at this. This is video from last night's protest. Several hundred people taking to the streets for a fifth night. That despite the police video being released. Protesters continuing to call for transparency and accountability as this investigation continues.
Right? Everybody's a criminal, right? Right? All you gotta do is have a reason to feel like it, right? Right? Because y'all police, y'all We are not going to go back.
Now, French President Francois Hollande has declared thousands of asylum seekers living in a squalid camp in the northern port city of Calais are to be dispersed across the country. Now, Hollande says asylum seekers will be split into groups of 50 people and housed in reception centers for several months. Hollande insisted that those who fit the asylum criteria will then be allowed to stay, and those who do not will be deported. The French president added that he intends to dismantle the camp known as the Jungle completely. Hollande's come under pressure over his handling of the migration problem. France dismantled the southern half of the camp in March and said that it will shut down the rest, but gave no time frame. Humanitarian groups say up to 9,000 people are currently living in the northern half of that camp.
Paris has held its second car-free day, extending the area closed off to vehicles as the French capital took a stand against pollution, noise and traffic jams. Instead, bikes, skates, scooters, rollerblades, joggers and pedestrians were welcome to move around some of the world's best-known tourist districts and beyond. The city says last year's first car-free day helped reduce pollution significantly. Other cities to follow Paris's example include New York, Casablanca and Marrakesh.
The UN Security Council meeting is being held in New York at the request of the United States and France. Mistura regrets the failure of both the US and Russia to maintain the ceasefire agreed on by both parties on September the 9th in Geneva. The Handarat camp in northern Aleppo has changed hands twice since Saturday. Rebels are now in control. Dozens have died after the Syrian army mounted a new offensive on Thursday. This escalation of violence dims any hope for a new ceasefire. Rebels say Russian warplanes are responsible for many of the airstrikes in the city.
The Syrian government, in the strongest possible terms, condemns the attack by American warplanes on a Syrian army site in the vicinity of the Deir el-Zour airport on September 17th. This attack allowed ISIL to gain control of the site. Our belief in victory is even greater now that the Syrian Arab army is making great strides in its war against the terrorism with the support of the true friends of the Syrian people, notably the Russian Federation, Iran and the Lebanese National Resistance.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the U.S. government had apologized to Syria for mistakenly bombing army positions earlier this month. But he says it is, quote, hard to believe that coalition intelligence could forget the troops' positions. Lavrov claims rebel forces in control of East Aleppo had threatened to attack any aid convoy moving along a key highway in the city.
Sunday in Aleppo has seen fierce battles between the Syrian army and rebels for a strategic refugee camp. The rebels seen here are said to have retaken the Palestinian camp to the north of the city in a counterattack, this despite bombing from government forces which had seized ground earlier. Meanwhile, planes have continued to bombard rebel-held districts of Syria's second city. Opposition activists accuse government forces of dropping barrel bombs from helicopters. At least 6 children were killed in one district, according to one report. More than 90 civilians were reported killed on Saturday as Damascus, backed by Russia, continued its bombing offensive on the besieged city. 30 rebel groups, including the Free Syria Army, have said negotiations under present conditions are meaningless.
Another senseless act of violence in yet another American community. Friday night at around 7 p.m. at the Macy's behind me, it was the site of a chaotic scene made even more chaotic by the fact that when police arrived, they had no idea that the killer had already fled the scene. 5 people were shot and killed, 4 of them women, 1 a teenager, another a senior citizen. A man was also shot. He was airlifted to Seattle Hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. This community is only about 8,000 people. They are in mourning and in shock.
There are people waking up this morning and their world has changed forever. The city of Burlington has probably changed forever, but I don't think our way of life needs to change in our community. This was a senseless act. It was the world knocking on our doorstep, and it came to our little community here.
I know I was very lucky last night. It could have been me. I was planning on going shopping afterwards, and I just want to be here to support the families that have lost their loved ones.
Security cameras captured photos of the gunman, describing him as dark-skinned, dark-haired, and in his late teens or possibly early 20s. The cameras actually captured him entering the mall, and he was unarmed at the time. 10 minutes later, when he entered Macy's, he was caught on camera armed with a gun. So authorities continue to investigate as to how he managed to get a gun during that time. A rifle was recovered at the scene. Authorities say so far they do not have a motive and that there is no evidence of terrorism.
2 policemen have been injured and taken to hospital after an explosion hit a shop in central Budapest. Police cordoned off the area late on Saturday, but they didn't release any information on the nature of the blast. Local media initially suggested a gas explosion, but some eyewitness accounts cast doubt on that. Witnesses also said the explosion happened around 10:30 p.m. local time. The blast didn't set off any fires at the scene, and police say an investigation is underway.
1 month after the quake hit, Amatrice remains a picture of devastation. The main square lies in ruins. Blocks of apartment buildings and houses have been reduced to rubble and twisted metal.
The powerful typhoon Meiji is expected to make landfall on China's southern coast on Wednesday, just 3 days before China kicks off celebrations for the week-long National Day holiday. Weather authorities said earlier today that the storm's center was about 1,000 kilometers southeast of Taitung City. The storm has packed wind gusts of up to 126 kilometers per hour. Typhoon Meiji now heads northwest toward the coastal areas of Fujian and Guangdong province at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour. Local authorities have warned of heavy rains and possible landslides. In September of 2010, a similar typhoon killed 75 people in South China's province of Guangdong.
Hello, global citizens. Bonjour à tous. Because of you, governments and businesses around the world have pledged almost $13 billion to the Global Fund. To end these epidemics and to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we must do more.